Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. Got question, Chase has got the facts. Talking NFL numbers, he's got your back. A little chart trend ball, man, he's got it like that. Chasing data by do champions. Chasing data applies to everyone. Chasing data, yeah, we're live today. Chasing data for always. Chasing data by do champions.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to yet another episode of Chasing Data. I am obviously your host, Chase, and if you're new to what we're doing here in the offseason, I've been doing power rankings here at Do Champions, Do Media, Buffalo Bills focused for the most part, but I'm covering everyone else in the NFL. I've been doing reverse power rankings since the Super Bowl ended. We've been updating them weekly as trades are made, as free agency came and went, as the draft came and left us. And there was a lot of switch up after the draft for sure. But what we're doing here for the entire offseason is, like I said, reverse power ranking these teams and doing a deep dive based on analytics for all these teams. What are they going to look like for 2025? What did they lose? What did they add in the draft? What are the strengths and weaknesses of these teams? What's their cap situation? Are there any free agents that still fit the mold of helping bolster these rosters that we discuss? And we'll just talk about them as a general overview to summarize at the end. Please let me know your thoughts. Get in here and share your opinions. See if we can agree or disagree. We're going to do 2 more teams tonight. We've done 20 so far. Well, actually 19, I believe. Had a little bit of movement after the draft, and we'll get into where each team is ranked. But before we get started, every week I do a little thing called our pre-game stretch, pre-game warm-up. Sorry, and there's not much news going on this week. I mean, we're in the slow part of the off season for sure, and there's only 2 real newsworthy stories that have come out. One is Justin Tucker being released. I mean, I feel like the writing was on the wall. I'm a Ravens fan, and the time has come and gone, especially with all of the off the field drama that has been associated with him as of late. They're designating him as a post 6-1 release, saves the Ravens a little over $4 million. As we know, Justin Tucker was terrible last year, 73% field goal. 73% rate on his conversion on his field goals in 2024, which was 9% lower than his worst season, which was 2015. And out of all the kickers that appeared in all 17 games last year, he ranked 19th. So his career is probably over, if we're being honest. No team is going to sign him at this point with the associated drama that's going to come with him, the off-field drama, I should say. And being as mediocre or bad as he was in 2024, it's not worth the risk to add him to your team. With all that being said, he still does have the highest field goal percentage in NFL history at over 89%. This is with kickers that have 100+ attempts, so he's still number 1. Will he stay there? To be determined. All right. Secondly on this is Jadeveon Clowney, who is released now by the Carolina Panthers. We know the Carolina Panthers have made a ton of offseason moves to bolster that defense, which was probably arguably the worst defense in the NFL last year. They ranked bottom 3 in almost any category that you could think of. Pass yards per game, rush yards per game, EPA per play, rush EPA, pass EPA. Everything was terrible. They brought in the likes of Bobby Brown the third. I want to say he's a third. They made some draft picks. You know, they just completely revamped. They bring in Trevon Merrick. They re-signed J.C. Horn. They're trying really to turn over that defense like they did last year with that offensive line. They're kind of going all in on the defense this year. Nick Scorton they drafted. I mean, it's just they're all in to revamp it for sure. Not all in to win everything. But anyways, Jadeveon Clowney, who's on the downhill part of his career. Had just 5.5 sacks last year, and a little bit of a drop off from where he was in Baltimore. You know, Baltimore usually gets those older players and gets an extra 3 or 4 sacks out of all of them. Look at Kyle Van Noy right now. Does he end up back in Baltimore? Possible. I wouldn't be opposed to it, but he's out in Carolina. We always do a little bit of Buffalo Bills news, as this is a Buffalo Bills network. Gabe Davis was released by the Jacksonville Jaguars, who, when we're talking about turnovers, they have fully turned over that roster for sure. They have cut Evan Ingram, now Gabe Davis. Christian Kirk got traded, so I mean their top 3 pass catchers outside of Brian Thomas Jr. are out the door. But anyways, I always made it a point. I talked about this a lot, especially on X, Twitter, where Gabe Davis and Saquon Barkley were in the same free agency group. Saquon Barkley signed, I want to say, a 3-year, $37.8 million contract last year, and Gabe Davis signed a 3-year, $39 million contract. So basically the same contract. We know what Saquon did last year, 2,000 plus yards, went crazy on the ground, scored a ton of touchdowns, could have had more if he wasn't stopped at the 1-yard line. And then you have Gabe Davis on the other side, who played in all of 10 games, had 20 receptions, 239 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That is basically a 1-game stat line for Saquon Barkley if you turn it into rushing yards instead of receptions. So quite the opposite end of the spectrum whenever you're comparing those players one-to-one. But could he come back to the Buffalo Bills? I mean, when you look at what he did when he was in Buffalo, his last season in Buffalo, let's compare 2024 Jacksonville to 2023 Buffalo. Jacksonville, 20 receptions, Buffalo, 45 receptions. Jacksonville, 239 yards, Buffalo, 746 yards. Jacksonville, 2 touchdowns, Buffalo, 7 touchdowns. His receiving EPA was a 22-point difference. His yards after the catch was a 110-yard difference. This is all in the positive for Buffalo. Yards after the catch over expected, a 56-yard difference. He even had more separation in Buffalo. So, I mean, just make it make sense. Regardless, I think he's worth bringing back potentially. Khalil Shakir is that underneath. You're still wondering what you're going to get out of Keon Coleman. So, sure, if you can get him on a 1-year deal, they're throwing out 1-year deals like crazy in Buffalo. So, let's go for it. But enough about all that. Let's get into what we're here for, the rankings and the breakdowns. My background kind of gives it away, who are the next teams going to be. But let's look at the 19 teams that we have ranked already. Cardinals got bumped up a lot after the draft. They had a great draft, especially and free agency. They have done quite a bit as of late. And they've jumped up in these rankings. I believe I had them around 22 or 23, and then after the draft, they're all the way up to 17. They've done a lot to improve their roster all around. So last week we talked about the Seahawks and the Falcons, and this week we're going to go to number 19, who are the Miami Dolphins. So why the Dolphins? Why are they 19? Why are they not higher? Why are they not lower? Last year was not their best effort. They had some injuries, as we all know, with Tua. Tua was out for quite a large part of the season, and that affected the true nature of this offense, as we all know. Like I said, last year they were 8-9. Their over-under right now is still 8.5 wins, so they're projecting the same exact season as last year. Does that take into account Tua's health? Probably. They're currently plus 8,000 to be the champions, plus 650 to win the division, which is higher than our lower odds than what I thought. They're third behind the Jets, which are close. I mean, I want to say they were plus 550 or something like that. But anyways, Buffalo is the clear favorite. I want to say they're minus 280 to take the division. But they started 2-6, 6-3 to end the season. That was once Tua came back. They played all those 500 or below record teams and just went on a roll. 6-3, still no playoffs. Head coach Mike McDaniel. We all know him very well at this point. 3 years in Miami. As far as yards per game goes, he's ranked 6th, 1st, and then 18th last year. 18th, quite a drop-off. Point differential, 14th, 5th, and then 17th. So an average or above average in the 3 years he's been there. His record, 28-23, which is around 55%. Best season was 11-6. That was 2 years ago whenever they had that first year with Tyreek Hill and made somewhat of a run before they went into the cold and then froze to death. And that was the end of their season. Offensive coordinator per officially Frank Smith, but we all know Mike McDaniel's calling the plays. When you look at this offense, it was, like I said, it was much worse than we expected it should be for 2024, but that was a lot to do with the fact that Tua was out for a solid portion of the season. Ranked 22nd in points per game, just over 20, 18th in yards per game, 23rd in yards per play. They have no way of converting a fourth down. They were 26th, below 50%. If you're below 50%, find something else to do. But that could also be due to the fact that they're a more aggressive team, more analytical, going to go for it more on fourth down, not just 4th and 1s that they're going for. The run game was terrible. I mean, they kind of turned to Achane, and he did not really produce to the level that I think they thought that he could. And, I mean, that was partially, again, due to the fact that the pass game was not there once Tua was out. But they only had 4 yards per rush, which was 28th. They ran it 26 times per game, which was the league average, and 105 yards, which ranked 21st. So the run game we'll get into more later, but just overall values, not that great. Pass game was above average, even without Tua. I mean, he played a large role of that. Completion percentage, we know this is a quick pass, high probability of a catch. Offense with Mike McDaniel, you know, that quick throw, almost 70% completion rate, 4th best, 6.8 yards per pass, 21st. So, you know, they make the short passes, quick passes, let their athletic freaks go crazy after the ball is caught. Passes per game, almost 35 a game. That was 7th. They were averaging pass yards per game and 17th in sack percentage. Again, due to that quick throw game. Defense coordinator is Anthony Weaver going into his 2nd year. He's had 1 year there. Last year, their defense was much better than what I was under the impression of when you look at all the statistical categories. They were 4th in yards per game. I believe that's better than what they were talked about. I mean, I feel like it was rarely ever mentioned that they were a top 5-ish defense at times in 2024. Look at some of these numbers. They were 9th in points per game allowed, 6th in yards per game. 4th in yards per game. 12th in yards per rush allowed. I mean, 8th in rush yards per game allowed. 2nd in yards per pass at 6.7. I mean, great against the pass. Just truly surprising, if we're being honest. So, additions to this team. Got the depth chart here. The green is undrafted free agents they sign. The orange is free agents that they signed, and the purplish pink are the draftees from the 2025 draft. So, first and foremost in free agency, they signed James Daniels, who's coming in and is going to be the starter, more likely at left guard. 3-year, $24 million contract. That was the only player that they signed that was 2+ years from another team. They have really gone into a mode of doing a lot of short-term contracts to see if they need to reset going into around 2026, after 2026. After 2026, there's not a lot of guaranteed money on this roster outside of the new draftees and their core pieces in Tua, Jalen Waddle, and Chop Robinson. Tyreek is even going to be there. Not really sure. All right, someone else they signed, looking at Nick Westbrook-Akina, who just forever seemed to have those big touchdown catches in Tennessee last year from Will Levis. Could be a great role player, wide receiver 3 at times. Malik Washington will probably take that role, but definitely depth, good solid depth for this team. Last year he had 32 receptions, almost 500 yards, 9 touchdowns. Got him for a 2-year, $6 million contract, so ideal. Zach Wilson, the new quarterback they brought in. Will he see the field? Very possibly. Very possibly. He did not see the field at all last year, but I mean, his numbers, we always thought that the Jets were terrible because it was mostly his fault. Aaron Rodgers comes in there, puts up similar numbers, has similar or worse record. So Zach Wilson may be perfect for this offense. Moving to the defensive side of the ball, there's other players you see here, but they're not worth going into detail about. They bring in a new linebacker in Willie Gay, more depth than anything, just on a 1-year contract. They bring in Melifonwu, who will be one of the starting safeties probably. Could be a tremendous talent if he could stay on the field. In 4 years, he's played 25 games. So that is an average of six-ish games per season, which is not ideal whenever you need him on the field and not injured, which also may be why they also signed Ashton Davis along with drafting Dante Trader Jr. A lot of new faces in that safety room. Ashton Davis had spotty play whenever he was in New York the last few years. They re-signed Dodson, the linebacker. They bring him over. Was that last year they brought him over? A 2-year, $8 million contract. He's good in coverage, but that's about it. And that's all basically for their worthy free agent signings. A lot of 1-year contracts, depth players, nothing really changes the outcome of the season. So let's look at their draft. We'll come back to this depth chart. Here is their draft class. We'll go through some of them. In the first round, I know a lot of people thought they may take offensive linemen as that is an area of need. There's a few areas of need, but they decided to fill that hole that was there, that was left from Calais Campbell leaving, because now they're 2 interior players. Benito Jones, Jordan Phillips, they draft him as well. Kenneth Grant, they got him as DN. He's a D tackle, could play, move him around. But anyways, Kenneth Grant, I had him as my D tackle too, behind his teammate Mason Graham. His comp was Travis Jones. He's a disruptive run defender, quick first step, active hands to slip the blocks. He runs well for his size, got the long arms. He has flashes of winning with his hands and getting his hands up in the passing lane. And that was shown because he had 12 defended passes over the last 2 seasons, which is amazing for a defensive tackle. Second round, they get their offensive line help in Jonas Avanea. I practiced saying that before this episode, and still, I still struggle. Projects to be the starting right guard for this team. 6'4", 324 pounds. Can play multiple positions as he did in Arizona. But he's probably going to be a guard on this team, at least starting off. They take Jordan Phillips that we just mentioned, D tackle, Maryland. Take another player in the 4th round, Jason Marshall, 5th round, 5th round. And then they continue Dante Trader's safety. Another one of note, Ollie Gordon, who if he would have came out of the draft last year, he probably would have gone late 1st round, potentially 2nd round at worst. 2022 he played in all 13 games, had just 1 start. 300 yards on the ground, 2 rushing touchdowns. You jump to 2023, he wins the Doak Walker Award as the best running back in college. First team All-American, Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year, first team All Big 12, led FBS with 1,700 yards at 6.1 yards per carry, 2,000 yards from scrimmage. He ranked 2nd with 21 rushing touchdowns, and he started all his games. So he went from 1,700 yards on the ground to 880 the next season. He was arrested before the season with that suspicion of DUI. Really hadn't heard anything about that since, honestly. But with the struggles with HN in the running game, he could definitely come in and have a quick impact on this run game. He's definitely got the capability if he bounces back to where he was 2 years ago. So that is going to be interesting to me to see how much of a role he gets in this offense. Definitely a handcuff option for fantasy if you're taking HN. Another draftee of note, they do have Zeke Biggers, but the one I want to talk about is Quinn Ewers. There is a scenario that he sees the field this year, especially with the Tua injury possibility. Zach Wilson could come in and struggle. And then there's a road where Zach Wilson plays a game or two and is terrible or not what they want to do, and Quinn Ewers gets some playtime. I mean, he's comfortable delivering just absolute dots from like off platform. He's able to access various arm angles, and his velocity stays there. It's just he's kind of has highs and lows when he was at Texas. So was he going to be in the NFL? He might be perfect for this system. So that was all their additions. Let's go back to their depth chart and talk about their subtractions. Look at the running back room. Raheem Mostert's no longer there after having 23 touchdowns 2 years ago. He is 31-ish years old. Go Gators. Okay. Yeah, we're talking Dolphins, but Gators too. Saved $3 million by letting him go. They turned it into the A-Chan show. They also have Jalen Wright that they drafted in the 4th round last year, and then they signed Alexander Madison and bring in Ollie Gordon. So quite a turnaround on that running back room. They also cut Kendall Fuller from that secondary, saved $3 million from him. They lose Calais Campbell in free agency. He is still consistent and healthy, and he's 38 years old, which is absolutely amazing. Last year, he had 52 tackles, 3 sacks, 25 quarterback pressures. I mean, outstanding numbers for any player, much less a 38-year-old. Then you wonder what else is going to happen with Jalen Ramsey. He's been on the trade block. They've told him he could go out and find his trade partner, basically try to find a trade partner for himself. Nothing has come of that yet. Will it get to the point where they just release him? I need to look and see what the numbers would be for a dead cap hit, because he would have a dead cap hit of note for sure. Then Tyreek Hill is the big one. Do they move on from him? At the end of the season last year, he talked about not wanting to be in Miami. It was a bunch of back and forth. He's tweeted very peculiar things at times. He wants out, then he doesn't. I mean, when you look at the dead cap numbers for him in Miami, if the only thing that really works out is a post 6-1 trade. That's the only real benefit for Miami money-wise. That would put them at a $13 million and $16 million dead cap over the next 2 years. It splits that dead cap hit. $15 million saved this year, which, I mean, I don't know if they're really worried about savings as much this year because there's not much to throw that money at for this year. You look at his 2024, 81 receptions, 959 yards, 6 touchdowns. That's his second lowest number of receptions in a season, his second lowest yards for a season, his lowest touchdowns, lowest yards per catch at 11.8, and his lowest EPA of his career. It was still positive 19.9, but it's still the lowest of his career. So is he out the door? I mean, he is on the wrong side of his career as far as age goes, and he depends pretty much solely on speed. Speed is such a large factor of his game that without it, what do you have in Tyreek Hill? Going to be interesting, especially if they are looking to do a soft reset for maybe 2026. It's possible. All right, strengths of this team. They have playmakers. They do still have Tyreek Hill. I'm not going to write him off as being irrelevant on this team. I mean, you already have him. Yeah, you're paying him a ton of money, but he is on the team and he is a playmaker. Down year last year, but still a solid option in this offense. You have Jonnu Smith, who emerged out of nowhere last year to come in and put up career high numbers. He had almost 900 yards, 8 touchdowns, 88 receptions, exactly 10 yards per catch. He had the second highest catch rate over expected on his team, only behind A-Chan, who's a receiving running back at that. He had the highest receiving EPA on the team, second most yards after catch, highest yards after catch over expected. It's just, I mean, he just came out of nowhere, especially the second half of the season, went crazy. Jalen Waddle, who's there. I mean, all these numbers are kind of spread out. No one had a great season last year. Again, due to Tua's injury, this definitely affected it. But Waddle, 700-plus yards, almost 60 receptions, 2 touchdowns, a down year for him. But again, these are great weapons on this offense. Another strength that they have, there's not like a ton of strengths on this team, but having a quarterback in place. You do have your quote-unquote franchise quarterback if he can stay healthy. If he can stay healthy, then you have your franchise available at all times. You have, like Dan Orlovsky says, you have quarterbacks that you lose because of, you have quarterbacks you win because of, and quarterbacks you win with. Tua is probably one that you just win with. Top 10, I would say. But as long as he's there, you're in every game, especially with this offense that is built solely around him and his ability to get the ball out quickly and to a certain spot. But there are weaknesses on this team. The holes going into the offseason were guard, which they've solidified with James Daniels and Savanaya out of Arizona, so the guard position is pretty much solidified. D tackle was another issue. They go out and draft Kenneth Grant and Jordan Phillips. They try to shore up that area. Cornerback was an issue. They had Storm Duck, who was terrible last year. Jalen Ramsey, who may be out the door. They make a draft pick, and Jason Marshall. I mean, I don't know what's going to be made of this. It's going to be a problem. And then Javon Hollins out after last season. Forgot to mention him. So the safety is another hole. They try to fill that in somewhat, I would say. Not the best job of doing so, but can't overspend for some of these players. I know I said the quarterback was a strength when healthy, but it's also a weakness that the season depends on the health of said quarterback. Staying on the offensive side of the ball, the run game is a weakness for this team. 28th in yards per carry. They were next to worst in EPA per rush. They were the worst in rush yards over expected at minus 236. So advanced analytics looks at the run plays and the defense that they're playing and says, oh, this is how many yards you're expected to get on the ground. And they were over 200 in the negative based on their season. Terrible in the run game. Just absolutely terrible, terrible, terrible. The O-line issues, especially with Teron Armstead retiring, they had the third lowest quarterback pressure percentage, but a lot of that was due to the fact that them having the quickest time to throw. We know this offense is solely based on Tua getting the ball, knowing where the player is going to be open, thanks to Mike McDaniel, and just putting it on a dot. Complete accuracy. Lowest time to throw in the NFL at 2.5 seconds. Next to lowest was 2.65. You compare that to the highest, which was Baltimore at 3.14. So almost 3/4 of a second difference on average. That's every play. So a lot of the quarterback sacks and quarterback pressures was alleviated due to the fact that Tua gets the ball out rather quickly. Extremely quickly, I should say. Moving on, the defense, I mean, it's not really a weakness. I guess it's not a strength for sure. They lost some key names. They're not getting any younger. Bradley Chubb's still there, but, I mean, what is he really, for the money you're paying him? What are you getting out of him? Inability to get to the quarterback is a weakness, I would say. They had the 6th fewest sacks, but we're 12th in pressures. So 12th in pressures, so top half of the league in pressures, but then the bottom 4th in the league at getting actual sacks. They had the 2nd highest average separation allowed at 3.8 yards, but the pass game was good. I mean, they were able to close in on those passes after they were made. When you look at the production as far as sacks, Zach Sealer, 10 sacks. Chop Robinson, good year at 6 sacks. Calais Campbell made up for 5 of them, and Emmanuel Agba made up for another 5. But, I mean, Agba's out the door. Calais Campbell's out the door. So, they had some movement for sure on this team. And what's going to happen with that? I mean, Jordan Brooks is there at the linebacker position, solid linebacking play last year, but definitely not a strength of this team. Overall, I just think the ceiling. Hold up. The ceiling is not extremely high for this team, but the floor is extremely high. The floor is here, and the ceiling is just above it right here. I feel like we know what we're going to get. It depends on Tua's health. If he's healthy, the floor is definitely high. 8 wins, I would say, but the ceiling's not like Super Bowl champs, as we know. When you look at their cap situation, they're currently 17th most committed, $288 million. Tyreek's due $28 million this year. 17 million cap space right now, which is the 8th least. I mean, there's some free agent names that's out there. When you look at some like the top 100 players that are left, who could they bring in? Rasul Douglas, maybe Asante Samuel would be great with that money that they have. I just don't know how much they want to commit right now. Mike Hilton. I mean, that's pretty much it. Stephon Gilmore, I don't think they want to bring him in. Justin Simmons, potentially. But I think they're going to roll with their secondary that they have right now. And, I mean, there's no one else of note in that top 100 that they would bring in to this defense to help improve it or the offense. I mean, I feel like they're kind of set with where they're at right now. So that money will just carry over and improve into 2026. They have $30 million in dead cap, which is average for the NFL. You know, $20 million between Xavier Howard, Kendall Fuller, and Shaq Barrett. So let's look at their schedule real quick, and we will do like a rough overview. This upcoming week, we actually get who they play each week and what time they play them, what time of day. All right. Looking at the home schedule, we're going to just do a rough estimate of wins and losses. Buffalo, they're in a different tier. New England, they should beat. The Jets, let's say they split that season series. Baltimore are probably going to lose to. Cincinnati, split. Chargers, or not split, I say 50-50 chance. Chargers, 50-50. New Orleans, they should beat. Tampa Bay and Washington, let's say they get one of those two. Then Buffalo again, no. New England, they should beat. Jets, we said a split. Cleveland, they should beat. Pittsburgh, they should beat, especially if they don't have a quarterback. Will Howard's quarterback, they should beat them. Indy, they should beat. Atlanta, toss-up. Carolina, they should beat. So you're looking at 9-10 win season, just quick overview of what they have. 10-7 is very possibly on the table for the Miami Dolphins. So if you just join us, not really familiar with the Dolphins, their top players on the team: Tua Tagovailoa, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Zach Sealer, Jalen Ramsey, Kenneth Grant at this point, honestly. Outside of that, there's not really top-tier talent. Achane, but, I mean, he's not really a runner of the ball to the level that you would like for him to be. So with every team, I go through and I try to find the MVP, who's the best odds MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, Offensive Rookie of the Year, and then on the defensive side of the ball as well. MVP, best odds is Tua at plus 5,000. Offensive Player of the Year, Tyreek at plus 3,000. He really needs a bounce back for that to make sense. There's no Defensive Player of the Year's numbers available, no Offensive Rookie of the Year numbers available. And that's because, on the offensive side of the ball, the rookies that they drafted, Quinn Ewers, Ollie Gordon, and then all of these undrafted free agents. So that's why there's no numbers on them. Defensive side of the ball, this was kind of crazy. Defensive Rookie of the Year, Kenneth Grant. Did I missee that? I want to say it said plus 50,000. I don't know. Most improved players, I just say the offensive line as a whole. Just take that whole positional group and let them improve. Drop-off candidates for this team, Jonnu Smith is definitely one. That's solely due to the fact that he could very possibly regress to the mean. Even though he's in this new offense, I could see him regressing to the mean. Last year, like I said, he had 88 receptions, almost 900 yards, 8 touchdowns. You compare that to his career best in seasons prior, 88 receptions last year. His career best prior to that, 50 receptions. Almost 900 yards last year. Prior to that, career best 582. And he did have 8 touchdowns in another season, but he only had like 40 receptions and 400 yards. So last year was definitely an anomaly, and he could regress back to the mean. Another drop-off candidate is Tua due to his injury history, and if that comes to haunt this team again. And that's why he's the X factor. His health, I try to avoid the quarterbacks being the X factor for these teams because, it's always a given that the quarterback is always the X factor. Wherever how they do is how the team does. But Tua's health is obviously the X factor. It's the most clear-cut X factor that could direct the path of this team in 2025. So, to finish up the Miami Dolphins, I want to go over their best, worst, and most realistic, or what I expect, outcomes. Best outcome for the Miami Dolphins. Tua is healthy all 17 games. Offense is back where it was 2 years ago. Buffalo takes a slight step back. I mean, they kind of overachieved based on what we thought they were going to be in 2024 prior to the season starting. The defense is top 10 again. There could be a scenario where they're then fighting for the division at 11-6 or 12-5, especially with the Jets in New England in a rebuilding phase right now. That's best case scenario. Worst case scenario, Tua's out half of the season again. The offensive line is terrible. That it doesn't matter if it's him or me back there. The defense regresses, especially after trading Jalen Ramsey, losing Calais Campbell, et cetera, et cetera. They're in the doldrums of the AFC East with the Jets and the Patriots, who could take a step forward. They could be 6-7 win teams. And the Dolphins could also be 6-7 win teams if these things play out. And then Mike McDaniel's out for 2026. The expectation for me is that Tua does get injured at some point, out at least a game or two at some point in the season. I mean, his history has shown us that he's not going to play all 17 games. Mike McDaniel works the offense around the offensive line issues, if there are any, especially with Patrick Paul being your left tackle. They tried to shore up the interior of that line, but still probably not going to be the best. Tyreek stays. The cap issues are too bad to get rid of him at this point. They try to run it back one more time. The offense is near top 10. The defense is probably average. Ramsey is not on the roster by whatever means that may be. And they finished the season fighting for the wild card because they're not in the same category as Buffalo. They probably finished the season, like I said, around 9-8, 10-7. Could be on the outside looking in, and they may just have too many issues to succeed in 2025, but they're going to be right there on the cusp of the wild card position and making the playoffs this year, I honestly believe. So that's number 19. Miami Dolphins. Did the Cardinals a few weeks back, but they've improved so much after the draft that now we're going to team number 18, and I'm sure you know who it is if you look behind me right there. But before we do that, let's do a quick word from our sponsors, and then we'll be right back.
For the best Italian food in Western New York, Elliot Apollos, call 716-825-3675. The Lardon Construction Group.
Fubo TV, the official streaming service of Do Champions. FanDuel, the official sportsbook of Do Champions.
For all your summertime needs, beauty pools, as well as kayak pools.
CX Chronicles, your total customer solutions focused manager. W.GG, the official energy drink of Do Champions.
Hey, Sons of Erie, our artwork looks better on your walls. Hamburg Brewing, please visit our tap room on Boston State Road, Hamburg, New York. And finally,
Fat Boy Surf Club for all your surfing needs.
All right, we're back. 1 second to get this situated. And we'll get started about team number 18, who are the Dallas Cowboys. All right, got that going. There we go. All right. Team number 18, Dallas Cowboys. Let me bring them up on here. Add them to the list. 18. Probably not what you want to hear if you're a Dallas Cowboys fan. You know, they usually have extremely high hopes for their team. Really think they're going to overachieve no matter who's there. But, I mean, a key contributor to them not succeeding is Jerry Jones. We all know that. And as a Louisiana native, even though I'm not a Saints fan, there is plenty of hatred, not from me, but from everyone else around this area for the Dallas Cowboys. That's for sure. So, their 2024 season, 7-10. Over-under this year is 7.5 wins. You know, all right, before we get started, I have them at 18. I had them at 18 as of Monday this week. Then they make the trade for George Pickens. And I'm like, oh, man, they're going to jump 3-4 spots at least. But then I look at the teams that are above them, and I just can't put them up there yet. I mean, they still have a lot of issues that we're going to discuss, but it does help solidify their 18th position for sure. A lot of variance with this team. when you have the likes of George Pickens on your roster. But anyways, 7-10 last year, over under 7.5 wins. So expected to be the same, even though Dak got hurt week 9 last year. They started 3-7, finished 4-3, ended up having 7-10 record. Cooper Rush came in and was serviceable. Currently, they are plus 750 to win the NFC East, which is third best behind the Eagles and the Commanders. Plus 3,500 to win the NFC, and they're plus 7,000 to be the champions. What were the Dolphins? The Dolphins were plus 8,000? What were they? One second. They're plus 8,000 to be the champions, but they have one more win expected as far as the over-under goes than the Cowboys. I guess it's because the NFC is way more wide open than the AFC. AFC, you got the Bengals, the Texans, the Ravens, the Chiefs, the Bills. Whereas in NFC, you just basically have the Commanders, Lions, Eagles, Rams, but those are two different tiers of teams for sure. Like I said, Dak got hurt in week 9. It really put a damper on the season. Head coach Brian Schottenheimer, out of nowhere. I mean, Jerry Jones makes this crazy signing, which is not anything new. Regardless, Brian Schottenheimer, 14 years offensive coordinator. Out of those 14 years, average rank of 19th in yards per game. 5th and 17th in his 2 Dallas seasons, but I feel like they could have gotten someone a little bit better suited for the job. I don't know. We'll see. I've been wrong before, but I mean, if you've been offensive coordinator, it took 14 years to become a coach, especially in an offense-driven league. It is quite tough to believe that he is going to be the answer as far as the coaching staff goes in Dallas. What's crazy? Them signing Brian Schottenheimer. Appreciate the input, though. All right, offensive coordinator is Clayton Adams. I mean, I believe Brian Schottenheimer is still going to be calling the plays. I mean, he was offensive coordinator last year. But when you look at last year's rankings, they were 21st in points per game, 17th in yards per game. The big problem was that they were next to last in red zone scoring percentage. Red zone scoring percentage, and that's touchdowns, 46%. Terrible. Oh, Pickens? Yeah, I did say Pickens. We're going to get more into him in just a few minutes. But like you said, crazy is one way to describe it for sure. I'm going to have some highs and lows with him, I'm sure. But we shall see. Appreciate you stopping by. Rush play percentage. They did not run the ball. We're never going to run the ball. Ran the ball less than 39% of plays, which was 5th worst. 4 yards per carry, 3rd worst. 100 yards per game, 5th worst. They just were not committed to running the ball. Passing the ball is where they did. 6th highest pass play percentage, but 6th worst pass play completion percentage at 62%. 10th in yards per game, but that's because they just threw the ball so much. Offensive line was good. So, yeah. Upgrade free safety. Yeah, we're about to get into the depth chart. Let's see. Doing a little rundown of last year first, and then we're going to talk about the additions and the subtractions for this roster. So they bring in Matt Eberflus, who has spent the last 3 years in Chicago. A defensive coordinator, defensive-minded coach for sure, obviously as the defensive coordinator. But when you look at this roster that he had in Chicago, who really didn't have many holes, he definitely underachieved, in my opinion. The defense ranked as far as yards per game go, 29th, 12th, and 27th over the last 3 years. So why in the world are the Cowboys hiring him to be the defensive coordinator for their team? Jerry being Jerry, honestly. So, all right, enough about their last season. Let's look at their depth chart for this season. Okay, the obvious thing that they do is that they trade for George Pickens. I mean, everybody knows this. If you're a Cowboys fan at this point, you know that they traded for him. They sent a 3rd and a 5th next year and the following year. The Steelers, on the other hand, God, they are so loaded for a quarterback in 2026. They currently have a 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, sixth, and seventh round pick in next year's draft. That's 12 picks. 12 picks next year. Ridiculous. So they definitely have the ammunition to move up. Anyways, George Pickens was the fourth wide receiver to be traded. His highs are high, but his lows are low. 16.3 yards per reception for his career, which is the most among 44 players who have 2,000 or more yards since he's been in the NFL the last few years. I mean, it's higher than Brandon Ayuk, A.J. Brown. So deep ball threat, especially when he had Russell Wilson last year. Tied with Justin Jefferson for the most 20-plus air yard catches over the last 2 years. And, I mean, the writing was on the wall in Pittsburgh that he was not going to get a second contract. Pittsburgh Steelers history, second contracts have only been given, as far as receivers go, to Hines Ward, Antonio Brown, and Deontay Johnson. That's the only three in Steelers history that they drafted and gave a second contract to. Just wasn't happening. Continuing on the offensive side of the ball, additions of note, Javonte Williams, 1 year, $3 million contract. He did lead the Broncos in rushing, but that's not really saying anything last year. Miles Sanders was also brought into the running back room. Joe Milton was traded for. That's interesting. Traded for Trey Smith. Why am I blanking right now? From the 49ers. They traded for him, and he did not do much. Defensive side of the ball, they had Dante Fowler in free agency. Had 10.5 sacks. So is the stock still rising? I don't know. He could definitely eat on this defensive line, especially being paired opposite of Micah Parsons, who is going to take a lot of pressure off the opposite side of the ball. They're going to be double teaming Micah Parsons and leave a lot of open space for Dante Fowler. Kenneth Murray Jr. was brought in as well. Will definitely be the starting linebacker early in the season until DeMarvion Overshown gets back, which he started to play at an elite level late into the season last year at the linebacker position. They re-signed Marquise Bell on a 3-year contract. Kavontae Turpin, probably the best kickoff returner in the NFL right now, punt returner. Extend Odigizua, the defensive tackle, who they had franchise tagged at first. They give him a 4-year, $80 million contract. Could be worth it at the end. He's 27 years old. He had a 38th overall grade as far as PFF goes. Third in quarterback pressures among defensive tackles. Fifth in hurries. And, I found this interesting. Comparing him to Jalen Carter. Jalen Carter, at this point, everybody says, he's one of the best defensive tackles in the NFL. Odigizua not spoken of in the same regard. Quarterback pressures, Jalen Carter had 53, Odigizua 60. So he's 7 more than Jalen Carter. Quarterback pressure rate, Jalen Carter 10.4%, Odigizua 12.3%. Same exact number of sacks. So when you're just looking at the numbers there, Jalen Carter, you could argue both sides. Jalen Carter played maybe the best defensive line in the NFL last year. So he had double teams, but he had people around him who could also take pressure off of him going up against offensive linemen. Odigizua played next to Micah Parsons. So again, you could argue both ways that they had pros of playing where they play, but Odigizua's numbers were better than Jalen Carter's last year, and that's saying something. At least in the slightest amount, hey, this is something good if you're in the same conversation as Jalen Carter, much less having better numbers than he did in 2024. Like I said, they traded for Joe Milton. They also traded for Kaiir Elam. Definitely underperformed based on where he was drafted. He was a first-round pick by Buffalo a few years ago and has been terrible since. So looking at their draft, interesting picks for sure. With their draft, first round. Whoa. That is not the draft. That is the schedule. Sorry about that. First round, they take pictured at the bottom, Tyler Booker, who was my number 2 overall guard. His comp is Tyler Smith. Good in the run game, zone run expert. They need to improve the run, as we've discussed already. The cons on him, the knocks on him is he doesn't change direction very well, but he is extremely long and very big. A lot of mocks had him going to Baltimore. He did not fall anywhere near Baltimore. Round number 2, they take one of my favorite edge players in Donovan Ezeraku, who is my edge number 4. But I mean, edge number 4 is still first round talent to me. His comp is Arnold Ebiketie as far as how he plays. He's slippery, he's rangy. He was second in the FBS last year with 16.5 sacks at Boston College. I mean, the production was there for sure, and I like production. I don't like taking chances on the athletes that, they have a high ceiling, but they didn't really perform for a reason XYZ in college. He's undersized as far as an edge goes, but he has long arms. Slightly undersized, I should say. He wraps up well when tackling, can bend the corner well. He had the quickest 3-cone and short shuttle of all edges. So he is an athlete, and he put up the numbers in college as well. Third round, they take Siobhan Ravel. You see him up there in that ECU purple Pirates jersey. If he would have been in the draft last year, he would have been a first-round pick. He has the torn ACL. I had him as CB4, mostly due to that ACL injury. His comp is Martin Emerson Jr. from Cleveland. He's the press corner with length and speed. He can recover when he's beaten. He can compete for 50-50 balls. And like I said, he played just 3 games last year because he tore his ACL in September. But if he can get back healthy, he can be an instant impact player for this Dallas Cowboys team. Of note, in the 5th round, they take Jaden Blue. We will discuss him more as we continue. A few other picks. I mean, nothing. We'll glance go over them real quick, but nothing really great as of right now. Never know what's going to happen with these draft picks, though. All right, going back to the depth chart. Their losses, their subtractions, are their injured players. DeMarvion Obershawn, who went out late in the season. What was it, around like week 15 or so? They're hoping he'll be back by the middle of the season. Trayvon Diggs, who had a great year 2 years ago, dropped off quite a bit last year, but he had all those turnovers that he made in 2023. Maybe regress more to the mean in 2024, but they're hoping he'll be back alongside his counterparts, especially in Deron Bland, by midseason as well. Once they get back, it will be a great boost to that defense. They lost Zach Martin. It was a down year anyway, so, I mean, age is contributing, blah, blah, blah. Eric Kendricks let me stay on the offensive side of the ball. Zach Martin, Rico Dowdle, who they let walk so crazily. I mean, look at – when you're looking at this running back room, you're hoping Jaden Blue is a hit, because if not, good luck and God bless. You really wish you would have kept Rico Dowdle, because when you look at his stats, weeks 1 through 10, 49 yards per game on 4.4 yards per carry, 3 touchdowns. The rest of the season, weeks 11 through 17, he doubled his output from 49 yards per game on the ground to 98.5, went from 4.4 yards per carry to 4.8 yards per carry. So he really got into shape, especially with Cooper Rush as his quarterback. It wasn't like he had Dak back there, who would have opened up the run game even more with his ability to pass the ball. So tough to let him walk if you're the Dallas Cowboys, in my opinion. Jumping to the defensive side of the ball, they lose Eric Kendricks, one of their linebackers. They also lose Jordan Lewis, who goes to Jacksonville. He was ranked 35th among cornerbacks, so solid player to say the least. Then you have Trayvon Diggs, who is also injured. Like I said, I mean, they bring in some names in Siobhan Ravel, Kyer Elam, hoping to get something out of him, at least till Trayvon Diggs comes back. But we'll see what happens. They have Donovan Wilson at safety, Malik Hooker at safety. So like the viewer said earlier, safety is a weakness on this team for sure. Strengths of this team. They have some strengths for sure, but they definitely have strengths, but they have equal and opposite weaknesses. Strength is the fact that they have a quarterback that is top 5 on his good days with a top 10 floor. Last year was definitely a down year for him. I mean, he was on pace to have his worst season of his career as far as rating goes. He was just turning the ball over too much. I mean, he's had in the last 3 seasons 10 interceptions, 9 interceptions. Last year in just 8 games, he had 8 interceptions. Still throwing the ball well, 87 rating. I mean, his EPA was down. His EPA per dropback was definitely down. I mean, it was just time to throw still about the same. I mean, maybe it was due more to the lack of weaponry outside of CD Lamb and the lack of run game as well. I'm going to chalk it up to that because I still think he's a top 5 on his best day, top 10 on his worst day quarterback in this NFL. Definitely a strength for this team. Top 3 to 5 wide receiver in CD Lamb. I mean, CD is just, I mean, he's gone crazy over the last few years for sure. I mean, he's been in the NFL since 2020. His worst season was 935 yards, and that was his rookie year. Last year, with a backup quarterback and also missing 2 games, he had 100 receptions, almost 1,200 yards, 6 touchdowns. And that was a down year for him. I mean, he is just elite, to say the least. And that's on average yards per target of 8 yards per reception. I mean, his separation, 2.9 yards. So he makes close catches. He can pull the ball in when it's close to him. 232 yards after the catch over expected. I mean, he's just all around great player, especially once you add George Pickens and possibly get some type of production from the run game. I'm curious to see what he's going to do if Dak can stay healthy in 2025. The O-line is a strength for this team. They do lose Zach Martin, but I mean, they have the trio of Tylers carrying this offensive line, and Tyler Guyton, Tyler Smith, and now Tyler Booker. They also take Cornelius in the 5th round, 6th round, so they kind of add some depth. 7th lowest quarterback pressure rate, top 10 in sack percentage, so strength for sure. Top 3 edge player, and he may not be 3 or 2 on his best day. In Micah Parsons, the front 4 in general is just an absolute strength and maybe the biggest strength of this team. Mozzie Smith started to come around, but then you have now Micah Parsons, Odigizua, Dante Fowler, who had 10.5 sacks, and then you take Ezeraku in the 2nd round. I mean, if Ezeraku hits, this defensive line can easily be the top front 4 in the NFL. Last year, they had the 4th highest quarterback pressure percentage at 37%, the 3rd most sacks at 52%, and the 2nd highest sack percentage at almost 9%. And like I said, you add Dante Fowler and Donovan Ezeraku to that front 4, and the sky is the limit on this defensive line, which is going to carry this defense in 2025. And then you add in the fact that once healthy, they add the likes of Overshawn and Trevon Diggs. Weaknesses. Like I said, equal and opposite weaknesses to the strengths that they have. Having Jerry Jones in general is a weakness. Having an unproven coach who has not really succeeded much in the NFL as far as being on the offensive side of the ball, being a play caller. I mean, I could be wrong, but the pairing of Jerry Jones and Brian Schottenheimer does not bode well for the Dallas Cowboys in the future, long term anyways. Weaponry outside of CD, they are trying to address that, or they did address that. But last year they had the worst yards per separation, worst yards of separation per catch at 3.1 yards. So everything's a tight window throw. When you look at their pass catchers last year, we already talked about CD Lamb. Their wide receiver 2, as far as numbers go, was Jalen Tolbert. 49 receptions, 600 yards, 7 touchdowns. Solid year for sure. And then Jake Ferguson was their 3rd most productive. Kavontae Turpin, who shouldn't be catching the ball as much as he is, but they had him on bubble screen after bubble screen, trying to get him in open space. Brandon Cooks was a dud, 259 yards, 26 receptions. I mean, they can't be any worse than what they were last year as far as pass catchers go on this team. Another weakness is the running back room that we mentioned earlier. The fact that the 6th round running back is probably RB1 on this roster is troublesome in the offseason. Now, we may get to week 4 and he may be an absolute stud, which is very possible. But when you're going into your next season and saying your 6th rounder is probably your running back run, it's not a good look. But they had the fewest rush touchdowns last year. They had just 6 rushing touchdowns. That's basically 1 rushing touchdown every 3 weeks. They had the 4th worst rush yards over expected, minus 96. The injuries on the defense and the defense in general was a weakness for this team. I did not realize how bad they were and how much Micah Parsons covered up the issues on the back end. 3rd worst in EPA per play, 20th in EPA per pass. They were absolutely terrible against the run. They had the worst EPA per rush, allowing a positive 0.14 EPA per rush. So that's basically on every rush they're giving up 0.14 points on average. Terrible, terrible, terrible. Worst in the league. 2nd lowest stuff percentage, which is a tackle that's made at or behind the line of scrimmage, at just 10%. 1 out of every 10 plays they were tackling somebody at or behind the line of scrimmage. And a positive 296 rush yards over expected allowed. Not tackling when they're supposed to, allowing gaps that they're not supposed to. Terrible. I mean, it's just not good. Not good. When you look at the individual contributors on the defense, Micah Parsons carried the load, obviously, like I said. He had 12 sacks, and that's in just 13 games played last year. I mean, if he would have played a full season, he would have been 15, 16, possibly up there with the league leaders. Trey Hendrickson was the league leader. What did he have, 18 and a half last year? 75 quarterback pressures, which is crazy. 19.1% quarterback pressure percentage. That means on 1 out of every 5 plays, he is pressuring the quarterback. Ridiculous. Just absolutely ridiculous. 2nd best sack leader, Chauncey Golston at 5.5. So less than half of what Micah Parsons had. Carl Lawson, 5. Overshawn had 5 as well. I mean, he's just all over the field. As far as being a linebacker, being to get to the quarterback, being able to cover, he's just an athletic freak. Donovan Wilson was their 5th highest sack leader at 4.5. He's a DB. He is a DB. He is their safety and had 4.5 sacks. Not great. Outlook on the season. I mean, it's going to depend on Dak's health and his coaching staff / Jerry's input. It's going to play a large role, even though it shouldn't. And also, who's going to be wide receiver 3? You have CD, you have George Pickens. Is wide receiver 3 Jalen Tolbert? He did come around at the second half of the season, finished the season over 600 yards, 7 touchdowns. So he is the clear-cut wide receiver 3 as of right now. It's not Jonathan Mingo, who they overpaid for. It's not Turpin. I mean, he's not wide receiver 3. It's not Paris Campbell. I think the odds-on favorite is Jalen Tolbert. Cap situation, 5th highest committed salary at almost $308 million. Dak and Micah make up $74 million of that $308. 2 big names. No really bad contracts. You know, a lot of the teams that were ranked 23rd down to 32 in my power rankings, they all had either huge dead cap hits or absolutely terrible current contracts. More terrible contracts that are currently on their roster, honestly. The Cowboys do have a lot of dead cap space, though. 7th most dead cap. Sorry, no, let me rephrase. They have the 7th most cap space and $35 million. Who could they add? Again, it seems like the same players keep coming up as far as who's available that I would add if I still had cap space. Asante Samuel is one. Mike Hilton, potentially. Even Rasul Douglas. Stephon Gilmore, you bring him back until Trayvon Diggs is recovered from injury. I mean, they've already signed running backs. They signed the wrong ones, honestly, I believe. But they could have brought in J.K. Dobbins. I don't think they get in another wide receiver. Keenan Allen's still available. And then, I mean, they don't need defensive line to help. I mean, that's pretty much it. Eric Kendrick's still out there, but they could bring him back just because of the familiarity with the defense, but they do have a new defensive coordinator. So I'm not really sure about that. They have below average cap, dead cap, and that's mostly due to Michael Gallup, DeMarcus Lawrence, and Brandon Cook. Forgot to mention DeMarcus Lawrence, who is now in Seattle Seahawks. Definitely on the decline, though, so they can easily replace him with Dante Fowler. So let's look at their schedule and get a rough estimate of their wins and losses for 2025. Giants, they should win. Eagles probably will lose both of those games. Commanders, let's say they split that. Best case scenario, they split it. Packers, let me back up. Cowboys have one of the worst schedules in 2025. One of the toughest schedules. I mean, look at these opponents. just quick glance, you're playing the Eagles, the Commanders, the Packers, the Chiefs, the Chargers, the Vikings, the Cardinals, then the Eagles again, the Commanders again, the Bears, the Broncos, the Lions. Like, bro, that is so many tough opponents. So anyways, go back to it. Giants, they should win. Eagles probably lose both. Split with the Commanders. Probably not beat the Packers. Probably not beat the Chiefs. Let's give them a win with the Chargers. Vikings, I don't know. Depends on what JJ is going to do. Cardinals, let's just say, yeah, when you got to go 50-50 on some of these. Another win against the Giants. No against the Eagles. Split against the Commanders. No against the Bears. No against the Broncos. No against the Lions. Should beat the Raiders, the Jets, and the Panthers. Has you at about 8-ish wins. And I mean, that's a lot to do with this schedule just being an absolute hard hitter. I mean, this is tough sledding for the Dallas Cowboys. So like I do with the Dolphins, if you're not really familiar with the Cowboys, who's the best players on this team? Their top players. You have Dak Prescott, that is the quarterback. You have CeeDee Lamb, the wide receiver. You have George Pickens, the newly acquired wide receiver. You have Micah Parsons, one of the top edges in the NFL. You have Trayvon Diggs on his best day whenever he's getting all these turnovers. That's your key contributors. The offensive line is not as well known, but they do have some great players on the offensive line. MVP and most improved player candidates for this team. MVP plus 3,000, Dak Prescott. CeeDee Lamb at Offensive Player of the Year at plus 2,000, which is very, very possible. George Pickens being there could definitely open up the pass game for CeeDee Lamb. Defensive Player of the Year, second best odds in Micah Parsons at plus 750. I think he's only behind Myles Garrett, who's around plus 650. I mean, it's pick whichever one you want. Jaden Blue is plus 8,000, which I feel like that is kind of astronomical, to be honest, because he could be running back one before the season even starts. I mean, there's a scenario. It's kind of a coin flip. This team could definitely make the playoffs, and you have a running back that could come out and put up 800-900 yards. I mean, I guess when you compare him to the likes of Ashton Genty, Colston Loveland, Tyler Warren, Travis Hunter, Cam Ward, then plus 8,000 starts to come into more realistic perspective. But I mean, I would think plus 4,000, honestly. Ezaraku is plus 2,200 Defensive Rookie of the Year, and I feel like that's good money because he's playing opposite of Micah Parsons. He's up on the front four with Odigizua, Dante Fowler. I mean, he's just going to have a lot of open lanes, honestly, in the trenches. Most improved player is easily Trayvon Diggs because he had such a down year in 2024 compared to his 2023 season. Once he comes back from the injury, he could definitely be the most improved player on this roster. Drop-off candidates. Like I said, Trayvon Diggs could be the most improved, but he could also be the biggest drop-off candidate for this team. Was 2024 an anomaly, or was it more of an indicator of his future as a defensive back in the NFL, especially coming off of the injury that he had? George Pickens, drop-off candidate for sure, just because of his, what's the word I'm looking for? His inability to keep calm in the most pressure-filled situations. We've seen a multitude of times where he's lost his cool on the field, off the field, on the sidelines, whatever you want to call it, when it was deemed most unnecessary. So can he control his emotions in Dallas? Will be interesting, especially if he's not getting the ball like he expects to. X factors on this team, like I just mentioned, George Pickens, and that's him basically not fighting the entire roster by week 6. Can he do that? TBD. Schottenheimer not being completely incompetent, again, TBD. Jerry Jones staying out of his own way. There's so many X factors for this team. It's the Dallas Cowboys. What do you expect? Jerry Jones, if he can stay from in front of a camera or a microphone, it'll be a great day in Dallas. To summarize, the Dallas Cowboys being ranked number 18 in my power rankings. Let's look again at their best, worst, and my expected outcomes. And these are all realistic things. Best outcome for the Dallas Cowboys is that Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, and George Pickens become something like the trio in Cincinnati. I'm not going to say as good, but they could be similar to them. Jaden Blue is serviceable and is the starter from the jump and is putting up, 4.3, 4.5 yards per carry, which would be outstanding. The offense is top 10 in the league. Parsons, Odigizua, Dante Fowler, Ezaraku make this front four into a minimum top 5 front four in the league. Diggs and Overshawn come back in the second half of the season. They're healthy. The loss of Philadelphia's offensive coordinator and Kellen Moore, who went to New Orleans, hurts the Philadelphia Eagles, along with their other departures that they've had, especially along that defensive line. Washington has a sophomore slump with Jaden Daniels. Although it may not be very expected, many other quarterbacks who had a great first season had a sophomore slump for some reason or another. Look at C.J. Stroud. His offensive line was terrible and made his season much worse compared to his first season. And then they're fighting for the division at 12-5 if all these things fall into place. Crazier things have happened. I don't think it's too far-fetched to have this best-case scenario come to fruition for the Dallas Cowboys. Worst-case scenario, George Pickens is fighting himself by week 6. There's no clear favorite in the backfield amongst Jaden Blue, Miles Sanders, Javonte Williams. Nobody wants to run the ball with effort or getting more than 2 yards per carry. There's no clear favorite. It's just a struggle. The defense is average. I don't think it'll be any worse than average just because of the Micah Parsons being there and the high-end talent that they do have. Both sides of the ball end up average, and they finish the season at 7-10 yet again, which their over/under is 7.5. So the expectation for me for this team is that the offense does take another step forward with the addition of George Pickens to CeeDee Lamb. The running back room isn't terrible like it was in the first half of last year, slightly improved. And the defense is average due to the front four carrying the back end of that defense. They're getting so much pressure up front that the front four can cover up the issues of being able to cover for long periods of time in the secondary. And they're potentially fighting for a wild card in this division. It's going to be tough with Washington and Philadelphia being the top 2 teams in this division who played in the NFC Championship last year. But the Dallas Cowboys, I expect to be around 10-7. They do have a very tough schedule, which could hold them back from getting to that 10-win mark. But I do see a road where that is possible. So, with that said, that completes teams number 19 and number 18. We are halfway done with our power rankings. We still have quite a few weeks before the NFL is back into the swing of things. We have, I want to say, one more episode. I don't know. It's maybe the last. I think this is actually the last episode where I do 2 teams per episode. We're actually going to start getting even deeper with 1 team per week for the top 16 teams. And we will do 1 per week until the season ends and the offseason ends. And we will be kicking off 2025 before you know it. Rookies are already making appearances at rookie minicamp. And we'll have off-season training camp just around the corner. And we'll be back really into the swing of things, projecting who we think is going to win, who's going to be terrible. But we will update these power rankings each and every week and add 1 more team weekly until we get to kickoff in September. So, thank you for stopping by. Hit the like button. Follow me on X, Instagram, TikTok. Follow Do Champions on Instagram, TikTok, X, YouTube. And come back next week and share your thoughts. Until then, see you.